Thank you so much. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. You guys could have been anywhere else in the conference, but you guys chose to be here, so I really appreciate that. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of the proliferation of AI and what it really means for, number one, the end user, and number two, more importantly, how do we build towards an agentic system of AI connected systems? And that part is really interesting. That's something that we're trying to tackle over here at Autonomys. So let me just switch the screen here. Okay. So we mentioned a little bit about, kind of permanent storage and why this is important for at least AI infrastructure, to support AI infrastructure. One of the things that we're noticing, particularly with large language models, is the vast consumption of data. And this is well documented. It's believed that, with the data scraping of certain platforms such as Reddit, other social media platforms, probably all of human-centric data is most likely going to be consumed by 2027. I believe last year there was a $6 billion contract between Reddit and OpenAI for them to be able to actually scrape their data. So all of those, user-generated requests, all those questions. I don't know about you guys, but every time I have a issue that I'm trying to tackle, I will go on Reddit, I will ask a question, and inevitably someone will have asked the same question like 6 years ago. All of that is being used to train the data that is powering the large language models that we know today. So if we take a look at that, right, all of this data is going to be vastly consumed. What is left? What is actually left after that? So we can take a look at two types of data sources, kind of, more traditional data sources. If you look at, universities and museums, a lot of physical data that is written still on paper, that has yet to be consumed. Number two, agentic data. So we have to look at actual agents, actual AI creating, curating their own data. That's going to be the new form of data. It is very interesting. I actually read a report the other day. There's a university in China that has started this new project. Essentially what they are doing is creating a reason-based model that allows AI to train itself, not on human data, but on AI data. And the efficiency that they're seeing come out of that has actually been really crazy. So the reasoning that the AI utilized in order to come up with its own inferences is actually way more effective and efficient than human trained data that other LLMs have been using. And it's accelerating at a very quickly pace. So I'm gonna stay on this screen a little bit because I think it's quite interesting because it taps into a couple of different models that we should think about. We're all working within Web3, we're all working in Web2. One of the things that we need to think about is how do we build systems, not for today, but for tomorrow. And essentially we can capture this within 3 waves. So I'll start with this. This is kind of our narrative. Essentially, this is kind of the evolution of AI as we know, right? So initially we had kind of had this centralized machine learning. This was kind of, from 2000s, probably even onwards, to OpenAI, essentially starting up around 2013, 2014, trying to build up those large language models, trying to train it, trying to infer it over years. Eventually, by 2022, 2023, we had ChatGPT with 3.5 started coming out, and that really opened the doors for consumer consumption of AI and large language models, generative AI, and that leads us to AI 2.0, where we are right now, essentially, right? So now we're starting to utilize AI to generate not just, text, code, images, videos, and this is accelerating at a very rapid pace. And a lot of the focus of industry is actually focused on this particular wave right here, right now, 2.0. And what we really should be focusing on is how do we start building for the next and final wave. This is actually a very product-driven exercise that we like to do. When we're looking at building products for the future, there's 3 waves as well. The first wave captures essentially quality and throughput. Everything that we do is trying to build on the quality of these existing large language models to increase the throughput, the output of what it can actually do. The second wave is always about cost and efficiency. And we're kind of seeing this right now, right? A lot of the funding that exists, not just in Web 2, but Web 3, is to build on the infrastructure of AI to make it more cost effective. So we're seeing a lot of tools that, could have costed, a lot of money in the past, now slowly starting to make its way into consumers' hands. And this is going to increase. And the third wave that exists, and this is, again, what I mentioned, what we should be building towards, is new systems. Right, new systems. How do we actually utilize AI in a way, not for today, but for tomorrow, with the mindset of where it is moving towards? And it's that third wave of new systems approach that, as builders, I encourage everyone to kind of think about, right? And for us, what we believe is essentially AI needs to be decentralized. It needs to work in a way where it is effective for us, right? Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, says that you're probably not going to lose your job to AI. You're probably going to lose your job to someone that knows how to use AI, and this is what we're talking about here as well. I'll give a very good example of this as well. So I come from the marketing world. I'm not sure if you guys have been to the conference, but when you step into the conference, the main booth, there's this wonderful exhibit near the front, and it says blockchain video, and the brand in itself is a Blockbuster. And Blockbuster is a very good example of a product, of a brand that essentially was successful, very successful in wave one, very successful in wave two, but not very successful in wave three, right? So wave one was kind of the commoditization of videos at home. You go to a Blockbuster, you rent a movie on the weekends, you can watch it with your family, and then wave two was essentially streaming, right? Streaming content. So now we had Netflix, you could have all of this in the vicinity of your home. You didn't need to leave your home anymore. And wave three, what is wave three? If we're looking at kind of streaming products. And I think we can take a look at AI to see how this can actually move towards that. Sorry guys, losing my voice. So for AI in wave three, what we believe, at least for the video streaming world, is imagine a world where really any type of content becomes fully curated to the end user, right? So as a person, you log into some social media platform, some video streaming platform, and it understands, either through biometric scans or some other physical identification, all of your preferences as a person. And then in real time, what you could have produced is content based on that person's preferences, right? So if you're a person that likes, gladiators and the whole Roman period, you could have a movie probably completely customized real time at a very low cost point than a traditional, movie production studios in the past, right away. And what we believe is that, these are the systems that we should be thinking about. How do we think of how we can utilize AI tomorrow and start building towards that? So I'm going to go a little bit back towards, Autonomys and what we do now. As you guys mentioned before, we provide permanent data stored on chain. That is the main value proposition for us. And as mentioned before, if you take a look at a lot of the large language models, a major core dependency is the actual data storage, right? How that data is stored. On top of that later becomes the data availability, how quickly you can access that data. And then thirdly, how you can bring it all together is essentially private compute, right? The computing aspect, how quickly you can pull that data and start to utilize it. So essentially that is what we do at Autonomys. We provide the infrastructure to support, any type of data demand at a very low cost point, comparable to other file storage solutions such as IPFS, Filecoin, etc. And this is kind of the main thing. So when we're talking about AI, there's kind of like this almost war that's kind of happening right now between open source and closed source models. Open source being traditional, kind of web, Western models of, OpenAI, Anthropic, Cloud Sonnet, et cetera, and then you have this movement that's kind of happening within the East, China, DeepSeek, where everything's open source. And what we believe is that, in order to really get into that third wave system, that third product building system, AI needs to be able to have that layer of trust. It needs to be open, it needs to be transparent. Hence why we also believe that, having that data that lives permanently on chain, that is auditable, that is verifiable, allows us to essentially, create a clear understanding of the decisioning and the reasoning that a lot of, for instance, AI agents are able to make on chain. So to come back to us, we started essentially back in 2018. We received a small grant from the Web3 Foundation, essentially Polkadot, and then also the National Science Foundation within the United States. And the whole idea was based around how do we create a new way to store data, hence the birth of Autonomys. Since then, we ran about 7 incentivized testnets over a period of 2 to 3 years. During this time, we accumulated over 100,000 different farmers that contributed to the network, providing data, storing data, and essentially securing the network. At its peak, we had about 600 petabytes of data stored, and essentially you can see that it's not the amount of Filecoin, etc., but it is a vast amount of data that could be utilized. So right now, what we're doing is looking for different partners, different builders that are looking to build AI applications on chain, and we can support all of that. So thank you guys. That is my presentation on data.